Hello and thank you for watching. This is another video tutorial by Easy Academy. In this particular video, we're going to be covering some of the Apache Kafka ecosystem components. Now, the Kafka ecosystem is very broad and very rich with a lot of components that would help you in your journey in event-driven architectures. But sometimes as a beginner, I see people struggle with the same questions I used to have when I was learning Apache Kafka as well. So in this video, that's what I'm going to be addressing. I'm going to be covering some of the different ecosystem components, what they're being used for, and why you would need them in your toolkit. So that's what this video is going to be about, just covering the different Kafka ecosystem components that are out there and why you would need them and what they're being used for. So that's what this video is going to be about. So first, before we do that, we're going to be talking about what is event-driven architecture, what is event stream processing. After that, I'm going to be going over the list of the ecosystem components, and then we'll talk about briefly what they're being used for and why you would need them. So that's what today's video is going to be about. We'll start with reviewing the event-driven architecture meaning and what stream processing is really all about, and then we'll talk about the list of components I will be addressing in the video, and then we'll talk about some of the different roles and responsibilities of those components as you put them together in your architecture. So if you are new to this channel, please go ahead and subscribe, because that's very important, as I will be able to notify you as soon as new content is uploaded, and you can share with others that you think would benefit from them as well. So I also have other social media handles like Twitter, GitHub, and my website, where you can check out my content from time to time, and you would see what I have to offer at that time. Now, I have a course that is dedicated to processing data using open source software, so you can take a look at this link here. I also have a link directly to the course that will show you all the different courses that I have and the content that I have in these courses as well. So if you're interested in how to use open source software to process data, you can check out this course and give me your feedback once you've signed up. So coming back to today's content again, what is event stream processing? This is something that some people struggle with defining, but basically what it's about is that in today's economy and all the different software that we're creating, we're having a shift in paradigm where we're no longer doing things in batch mode, where we will aggregate the records and the data that we want to take action on, pile everything up, and then pick up what we need at that time, and then process the small subset of data with a fixed set of records. In today's system, what we're doing is we're doing event stream processing. Basically, we have a component of the ecosystem that is generating these events. So these are typically addressed as producers. They're the ones that are writing the events to some particular location, which means that we obviously need some mechanism to store or buffer these events as they are being produced. So there is a component that is creating or generating these events, so this will be writing it somewhere, and then we need a storage layer to keep track of these events as they're being created in real time as well. Then we have another component that would either process the events in near real time or retroactively after they have occurred. So Apache Kafka Ecosystem has several of these components, and I will be talking about them shortly. So you have a component that generates the events, those are the producers. There is a storage layer that buffers the events for us to step in and process them either in near real time as they are happening, or retroactively, which means later after the event took place, after a little while. And then we have some components that are consuming the events that have been processed. So sometimes the system does not process anything, it just buffers the event after the producers have generated the event, and then we have another component that just comes to pick it up after the fact and process it either after the fact or in real time. So and then the consumers just typically just read the events from the storage layer. So that is an overview of what event stream processing is about. Now, in different industries, in retail, in hospitality, in entertainment, in education. There are all kinds of events that are taking place, and these systems are being leveraged to create a different architectural paradigm that makes things more efficient and makes you to be able to have more responsive system for your customers that are using your software. Now, the next thing I want to address is the ecosystem components. There's a lot of components that are part of this Apache Kafka ecosystem, and I'm just going to be giving you a brief list of them. In future videos, I will be doing a deep dive into the respective components. If you're interested in that, please highlight the ones you would like me to do a much deeper dive on. But for today's video, I'm just going to give you a summary of what the different ecosystem components are, because I get this question a lot, and we will address those components shortly. So the first one I want to talk about is the producer API. This is something in the client that allows you to generate events and push it into the storage layer. So Apache Kafka has a storage layer called the brokers, but the producers are the one that create the events and then they push it into the storage layer, which is the Kafka brokers. So as the producers are generating the events, they are being pushed into the Kafka brokers, which serve as the storage component for this ecosystem. And then in terms of processing, we have another component called the streams, Kafka streams. So the streams API provides you with the ability to reactively process these events as soon as they're arriving in the brokers. So the streams API allows you to fetch the events as they're coming into the brokers, and then you can process them, combine multiple event streams together, and then process it and then push it back into the storage layer, which is the Kafka brokers. And then we also have another layer on top of this, which if you don't want to use Scala or Java to process, you can use something called KSQLDB. So KSQLDB is not licensed under the Apache license. It's something that came from Confluent, but I have seen several customers or users use this KSQLDB framework, which provides a SQL layer that allows you to do Kafka streams, but with SQL. Now, if you're more familiar and comfortable with Java, you can go with the streams API, and that allows you to use Scala or Java to do the stream processing. But if you are more comfortable with SQL and you don't really have the time or you don't have the skill set to work with the Java API, then you can use KSQLDB to do what you would normally do with Kafka streams. So the streams API and KSQLDB gives you the opportunity to process the events that are stored in the broker either in near real time or retroactively. So if you want me to do a deep dive into the streams API or KSQLDB, please put it as a comment and I will take a look at that as well. Then we have the consumer API. The consumer API is used to fetch events out of the storage layer from the Kafka brokers. So the producer pushes the events into the storage layer, which is the Kafka brokers, and then the consumers pull it out and they read from the Kafka brokers. So that's the functionality of the consumer API. And then we have Kafka Connect. Kafka Connect is another ecosystem component or API within the Kafka ecosystem that allows you to connect to data sources. So the Connect API has two components. One component allows you to retrieve data from different data sources and put that into the Kafka brokers for storage. Then another portion of the Connect API allows you to push data out of the Kafka brokers into a different storage destination. To give you an example, let's say we're trying to watch changes that are happening inside a database and we want to push those changes into a storage layer like Elasticsearch. So what you would need in this case is you would need something called a source connector that would watch the changes in the database layer, and then it will pull those changes like a producer and put them into Apache Kafka brokers. Then for you to push it out of Kafka brokers into the destination Elasticsearch indices, what you would need is a sync connector. So the sync connector allows you to pull data out of Kafka into the destination data store or layer. So Kafka Connect gives us two components. The producer component, which is the source connector, allows you to watch changes happening at data sources and pull those changes into the Kafka broker. And then the sync connectors act like consumers that pull the data out of Kafka brokers and push them into destination data stores. Then we have Schema Registry. Kafka supports multiple data formats. So we have the Avro format, we have JSON format, we have binary format, we have protobuf. So all these different formats, you need something to keep track of the different data structures. Now, sometimes you may have something, a particular data structure evolve over time. The Schema Registry allows us the opportunity to use these different schema structures without having to put in too much work into that. So the Schema Registry provides a mechanism to keep track of the evolving data structures that are being used as events are being produced into the brokers and also consumed from the brokers. So the purpose of the Schema Registry is to provide the mechanism to keep track of the schema changes, which is the data structure that are being stored inside the brokers. We have another component called REST Proxy. REST Proxy provides a REST API for you to interact with the brokers. So you can use it to see what topics are in there and some of the different configurations that are present in the Kafka brokers. So instead of having to use the client or the admin API or something like that, you can use the REST API and interact directly with the Kafka brokers to do so. And then we have the admin API, which is very important for us to administer the different topics and configurations that we have inside the Kafka brokers. So the admin API provides that mechanism for you to interact with the Kafka brokers to configure things and play with the settings of the brokers. And then finally, we have Zookeeper. Now, I left this for last because Zookeeper is in the process of being removed from the Kafka ecosystem. So there is something called Keep 500, which I will put a link in the video, that talks about the whole process of taking out Zookeeper from the ecosystem. Now, Zookeeper is being used to keep track of metadata inside the Kafka topics and the Kafka brokers. So all the different things that are happening inside the brokers is being tracked by Zookeeper. So that is the function of the Zookeeper component. It is not used to store actual topic data, but it's being used to keep track of the metadata for those topics and some of the other things that are happening inside the Kafka broker. So that was everything I had to cover in terms of the ecosystem components. If there's a particular component you would prefer me to do a deep dive on, please put it as a comment and I will sure do that as soon as possible. So if you like this particular content, please feel free to subscribe to this content and this channel, so that when new content like this are being published, you will be the first to find out. And please follow me on my Twitter handle, and also check me out on GitHub and as well as my website. And don't forget that I have a course that has to do with processing data with open source software. So if you're interested in something like this, please feel free to check out the course and let me know what you think. Once again, I want to thank you very much for checking out this content, and please subscribe to the channel and give me your feedback. If you have any particular content that you would like me to do a deep dive on, please put it as a comment in the video and I will be sure to include that in my planning for upcoming content. Thank you very much for your time, and I will see you in the next video.